the candidates for Dane County Circuit Court Judge this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. It's not often we feature races for Dane County Circuit Court on this program, although it is not often that a spot on the bench is contested. When a retirement opened up the Branch 11 seat, former Assistant City Attorney Roger Allen was appointed to fill it. He's being challenged in this election by Public Defender Berz, and both candidates joined me this morning. Thank you both very much for coming on.
Thank you, Neil.
Let me just ask you to start by introducing yourselves to the viewers here. Talk a little bit about your background, Roger, and why you're running for re-election.
Thank you. And it's technically not re-election. This will be my first opportunity.
Good point. Absolutely, good point.
This will be my first opportunity to have the honor of being elected to this office by the people of Dane County. My background is I'm a criminal justice graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I went into the service after that, into the Army as an enlisted person, went to Officers Candidate School, became an officer. When I left active duty, I continued with the reserves. I retired from the Army Reserves as a Judge Advocate General. After the active duty stint in the Army, I joined the Dallas Police Department, served for a year in some pretty tough neighborhoods, quite frankly. Then I went to work for the Drug Enforcement Administration as a special agent, working a little bit in Dallas and then transferring to the south side of Chicago. Met my wife. She was a forensic chemist for the Indiana State Police while I was working for the DEA. We decided to get married, raise a family. I wanted to go on to law school. It had always been an ambition of mine. We looked around at the various law schools I was accepted to. I didn't have to do much selling. We came up to Madison. She fell in love with the place. It was an ideal place to raise a family, still is. So we moved here. I went to law school. I did law school on the 2-year plan, graduating with honors, and then went to work in a small private firm here in Madison. If you know anything about small private firms, you know that everybody has to pull their own weight in a small firm in this market to survive. I pulled my own weight, and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with the City Attorney's Office in Madison for the last 16 years prior to being appointed to the bench. I served the City of Madison as an Assistant City Attorney, doing prosecution, doing all sorts of assignments, including most recently redistricting, open meetings law, public records law. I won the Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council Public Openness Advocate of the Year Award in 2009 for the work I'd done on revising the city's public records ordinance. And in fact, my revisions to that ordinance are used as a model statewide for public records ordinances. But I also served as the legal advisor to the Madison Equal Opportunities Commission, which I'm very proud of, because that underscores what I believe to be the central principle of my life, Neil, and that is defending people's rights. I've actually put my life in harm's way to defend the rights of others.
As a police officer?
As a police officer, as an Army officer, and again as a special agent for the Drug Enforcement Administration. And I continued that role as a public attorney, and now I'm very proud of the work that I've done so far in the 4 months I've been on the bench. And I think it speaks to my qualifications for office, the type of supporters I have, the endorsement of the Dane County Bar Association through their poll, finding me 84% highly qualified or qualified. I think that speaks to my reputation in the legal community.
Ellen, this is something you always thought about, being judge?
Well, you know, I think anyone who attends law school thinks about becoming
Do you?
a judge.
I mean, it's that common?
It's that common, though serious consideration has not come up for me until the last few years, actually. I was raised right here in Wisconsin, educated by teachers in the public school system from kindergarten all the way through law school, which I graduated in 1983.
Here at the UW?
Right here at the UW, you bet. I have dedicated my entire career to public service and protection of people's rights. I've been both an assistant district attorney and a public defender. So my focus has been litigation in circuit court, where I've gained extensive trial experience. I'm also, for the past 10 years, been adjunct faculty at the University of Wisconsin Law School, teaching trial advocacy and evidence, but my teaching didn't start there. Actually, I developed a grade school program called The Best Defense is No Offense to teach at the elementary school, the basic elements of our American justice system. I also coached mock trial at Madison East High School for years. In addition, I've been involved with the State Bar Criminal Law Section and the Indigent Defense Committee. Nationally, I was a criminal justice representative to then U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno. And internationally, I was a founding member of Justice Without Borders. I'm proud to say that just recently, I was named a 2012 Leader in the Law by the Wisconsin Lawyer magazine. After, almost 30 years of working for justice as an advocate, I'm really now looking forward to working for justice from a different perspective, that of a judge.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, both of you have extensive backgrounds, varied experiences, life experiences. But as you're going around talking to people, Ellen, and knocking on doors, what do people respond to? I mean, what's the one characteristic that you really think voters care about in terms of a candidate for judge?
I think there are a few things. One is showing that you've had a commitment to justice for an extended period of time, not just when you're running for office, that you have a history of integrity and ethics, and that's really important right now. I hear time and time again how there is a crisis in credibility facing our Wisconsin judiciary. And we really need a candidate, a judge, who is beyond reproach on that, because we need to build up that credibility in Wisconsin again so people can have faith in their justice system.
Are you hearing those integrity questions too, Roger? And to get back to the original question, what's the one thing in your experience that is you think voters really care about?
A couple of things. There's not one thing. There's, of course, adherence to the rule of law. They don't want judges substituting their vision of what the law should be for what the law is. They also want a fair and impartial judiciary. They want to know that when they come in front of a judge, it's not the judge's biases, prejudices, or partisan politics that will determine the outcome of the case. And I disagree with Ellen. I fundamentally disagree with Ellen. I don't think that there is a crisis in the Dane County Circuit Courts. We can talk about the Supreme Court. That's a matter of public record, and there are concerns there. But when it comes down to the Dane County judiciary, I'm very proud to be serving, proud and somewhat humbled to be serving with the 16 other judges that are on that bench.
We're going to talk more about issues like racial disparity and alternative treatment when we come back right after this. My guests this morning are the candidates for Branch 11 on the Dane County Circuit Court. Judge Roger Allen, who was appointed 4 months ago to fill the vacancy of longtime, highly respected Judge Dan Mosier, and Ellen Berz from the Public Defender's Office, who is challenging Roger Allen for this seat. Right, let me start with you, Roger. Just I want to get a sense of resources. It's been my impression over the last probably 10 years, resources have been an issue. And you see it in certainly in the district attorney's office. You see it in staffing, the judicial staffing across the board. Do you have a sense of how it's affected the efficiency of the courts and the justice system, and is that an issue?
It is an issue, and it has affected the courts. Over the last 20 years, we've seen a dramatic increase because of federal grants in the number of police officers and law enforcement officials out there. So the number of cases coming into the system has correspondingly increased, while there hasn't been a parallel increase in prosecutors, public defenders, or in courts. And so the number of cases coming in is a tremendous caseload, and it's incumbent upon judges to be very careful in managing their docket and to keep these cases moving forward. Does it mean extra hours? Yes. But another thing a judge can do is look for places where there are efficiencies to be yielded in the system, such as better use of audiovisual technology, maybe using that for court appearances whenever possible to alleviate some of the burdens on the sheriff's department, save some of their money, and then reinvest that where we really need it, and that's in treatment, training, and education programs to deal with the problems that bring people into the court system in the first place. And we see not only in the criminal justice system, but a corresponding increase in the number of civil cases and family law cases.
Yeah. This isn't anything you can necessarily do something about, Ellen. I mean, it's a state legislative issue in a lot of ways, but certainly the Public Defender's Office has dealt with, big resource cuts. Private attorneys, what they get paid to take some of the cases that now, there aren't enough defense attorneys to take, are insufficient. How do you look at that resource issue in terms of being a judge?
Resources are a problem for every aspect of our community at this point in time. The judiciary is no different. There seems to be three root causes of crime, interestingly. Alcohol and drug addiction, mental illness, unemployment. The interesting thread in all of them is that they can be addressed through treatment or education or medicine, all of which are better provided outside the justice system than inside the justice system. So really, we have to take more of an approach of getting all members of the community involved. The county board, the school board, members of the justice system, all of them have to be working together. You know well that there is a pipeline between failure rate in high school and incarceration as an adult. We need to do something early on. We need to do something with everyone who's involved. That includes judges. But for judges themselves, we need to think out of the box. We can no longer be satisfied with the traditional role. For example, Julie Genovese is herself dealing more with, for example, drug cases, because our drug court is overwhelmed, not enough places for everyone.
In terms of alternatives to incarceration, Roger, is there more that a judge can do? There are limits, right? But it's important, an individual, the judge's approach to that. How would you describe your approach to that?
Well, my approach is this. When I look at a case, you go through, when somebody enters a plea, and that's the way probably 95% of the cases are disposed of these days, there's a recommendation from the prosecutor and the defense. I suppose the judge could just sit there and accept that, because if both parties are negotiating at arm's length, there's a presumption that what they've come to is a just agreement. But I think it's incumbent upon a judge to ask more. Ask about the offender. Ask about, have they any prior convictions? What treatment programs have they gone to? If they've done no treatment programs, nothing to address the underlying issues that Ellen talks about, then maybe you turn to the prosecutor and say, why isn't there a treatment program here? And then you turn to the defense attorney and ask the same question, and you familiarize yourself with the case. This doesn't happen in Dane County, but I've been in other jurisdictions where attorneys go into court for various motions and the judge hasn't even read the briefs. I find that hard to believe, but it has happened to me as a law enforcement official. It's obvious the judge hadn't read the briefs. I make it a point to read the briefs and be familiar with the legal issues beforehand, not take the case back and decide it later. Let's get it moving forward. So basically what a judge can do is be on top of the cases, just like Julie Genovese is, but also we need to look at other forms of courts, such as the drug courts, the OWI courts, the veterans courts. These specialized courts have shown an amazing ability to address the needs of the community and the offender.
Just philosophically, Ellen, are you inclined to look for alternatives to sentencing where possible? To incarceration where possible?
Any responsible judge would.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. Number one, financially, it's less expensive to handle an issue without incarceration than with incarceration. 2, if you incarcerate someone, they're going to come back out. They're going to come back out having lost their family support, community support, job, and having been with a lot of criminals, learning that which we do not want them to learn. So in order to address the root causes, to save money, and to reduce the crime rate, it makes imminent sense to go for diversion.
We're going to return with our 2 candidates for Dane County Circuit Court Judge right after this. A quick reminder that beginning April 8th, For the Record will move a half hour later to 10:30 a.m. We'll follow Face the Nation, which is expanding to 1 hour. That starts on April 8th. My guests this morning are the 2 candidates for Branch 11 of the Dane County Circuit Court, Judge Roger Allen and Challenger Public Defender Ellen Berz. This is a tough question. The racial disparity issue is really tough. I know that, and we could spend a whole half hour just on that. But it's really important, Roger. There are things being done. It's not like nothing's being done, and yet it still exists. What's your approach?
Well, as Ellen alluded to earlier, we're at the back end of the system. So what we need to do is ensure that all of the people who come before us are being treated equally. But I think beyond that, judges, if you think back to when you first met a judge, you probably imbued them with a lot of respect because of the office they held. And I believe the judges still command that respect up in the legislature. I think my background, having been in law enforcement, having been a defense attorney, also lends a measure of credibility to what I'm about to say, and that is that I think people on the Hill will listen to judges. And I think judges need to use that bully pulpit to get the resources that we've both been talking about this morning to address the needs of people that come into our system. But the racial disparity begins very early on with the first action of actually not even a law enforcement action. It begins back in the educative process. We need the greatest equalizer in our society is a good, solid educational background. And we need to ensure the kids are properly educated. We need to close the racial disparity gap in education. That will help close it in the criminal justice system. But what judges can do is when people come before them, a lot of the people who come before us from minority communities are there pro se. They make enough money that they don't qualify for a public defender. It's incumbent upon the judge to ensure that the plea agreement is really fair, because you have a power imbalance between the prosecutor and the non-represented person. And even with represented people, I have asked why a person wasn't eligible for first offenders program, because the person of the majority community who appeared before them on a similar crime was given first offenders program. Well, it kind of took the prosecutor back, but when they looked in their file, it turned out that this person had other convictions, so they weren't eligible. But that's the type of question judges need to ask, and judges in Dane County do ask those questions.
Ellen, your thoughts on racial disparity?
What people may not know is that Dane County is one of the leading counties in the nation for disparate treatment, racially, sentencing. It cannot be accepted. It cannot continue. And going along with the traditional approaches of the judge speaking to the litigants is not enough. We have to be proactive. You know, a few years ago there was a study done, and the county board and some judges got together to try and figure out what to do, and a couple of things were put into place. But then it stopped. We stopped getting feedback about, have any of these programs worked? If so, should we increase them? If they aren't working, let's move to another program. We need to get constant data on how our racial disparity is being dealt with here in Dane County, because the issue is too grave to be ignored.
Can I address that?
Yep.
Judges in Dane County aren't ignoring that issue. I think it's somewhat, well, I'll just leave it at that. They are very concerned about this issue. We talk about it, and Judge Faust is measuring our progress. So I think it's a little unfair to come here and cast those charges against 16 of my colleagues who are working very hard on this issue and very, very concerned about this issue.
That's a mischaracterization. I never said that the judges were ignoring it.
This may be a short answer, but I'm curious in both of your thoughts. On any level, would you support appointing judges rather than electing them? Ellen?
No.
Okay.
No. Appointment is a political process. And the one thing we have to minimize here in judicial selection is politics. Dane County citizens are smart. Dane County citizens can do the research. Dane County citizens can find out for themselves who the most qualified candidate is. Now, of course, they get recommendations in the form of endorsements. By the way, the Dane County Bar Association has not endorsed any candidate. That was not true. The truth is that we have many endorsements on both sides. They should look at the endorsements, but more importantly, look at the qualifications of each candidate for themselves. Voters should decide.
I want to give you both 30 seconds to wrap up, but first, Roger, on the issue of appointed versus elected, on any level, would you support appointed?
Well, you absolutely have to have appointments when there's a vacancy between elections.
Of course.
You have to fill the office, and Ellen knows that process. She's been through it as well as I have. I thought it was a very fair process. It resulted in appointment of Frank Remington Jr. Marta Myers was one of the people who was in the panel with me.
Yep.
So, but I do believe the ultimate decision on whether a person should remain in office belongs to the people.
What have I left out here, Roger? Give me 30 seconds on any last thoughts.
Well, last thoughts. I don't believe I ever said I was endorsed by the Dane County Bar Association. What I said was their poll showed that I was 84% qualified or highly qualified. I believe that this is too important a position to be turned over to partisan politics. We have a third independent and co-equal branch of government called the judiciary.
I got to give Ellen 30 seconds too. I'm sorry, Ellen.
Thank you. You know, again, voters should look at our qualifications. I've been endorsed by MTI, the Madison Teachers, AFSCME, the South Central Federation of Labor, John Erpenbach, Therese Berceau, Sandy Pope Roberts, Chris Taylor, and a slew of others that you can find on my website, berzforjudge.com.
I'm going to fairly cut you both off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good interview. We'll wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Roger Allen and Ellen Berz for being here. Next week, we'll be joined by the candidates for the Madison School Board. That's next Sunday. We'll see you then.